A little girl I helped days ago returns with her mother, only this time, it's not just gratitude they bring. Her mother, with desperation in her eyes, begs me to be her husband. What could have happened to lead her to this surprising request? It had been a typical day at the marketplace when I first met the little girl. She had been standing at the edge of a bustling stall, looking lost and out of place. Her clothes were ragged, her face smeared with dirt, but it was her eyes that caught my attention. There was something in them, something beyond the fear, beyond the confusion, that made me pause. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, but her eyes were full of a wisdom and sadness that seemed far older than her tiny frame. She was standing alone, surrounded by the chaos of the market, her small hands clutching something close to her chest. A piece of cloth, perhaps a makeshift blanket or a prized possession. Her shoulders hunched, as if she were trying to shrink into herself, blending into the crowd. I walked up to her, gently kneeling down to her level so I wouldn't tower over her.
"Are you all right?"
I asked softly, my voice barely above the noise of the busy market.
At first, she didn't respond.
She just stared at me, wide-eyed, like a deer caught in the headlights. I could see the tremor in her hands, the slight shake of her shoulders. Whatever she was going through, whatever had brought her to this moment, she was terrified. But there was something else, something in the way she looked at me, as though she had no idea how to ask for help. "Hey, it's okay," I said gently, offering a smile. "I'm not going to hurt you."
"Are you lost?"
Her lips parted, but no words came out. She just shook her head, the tears in her eyes threatening to spill over. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I knew this wasn't a time for pity. This was a moment for action. "Do you need help?" I asked again, a little more firmly this time, hoping to break through the barrier of fear she had built around herself. She nodded slowly, then took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to speak. My mom," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She's sick. I can't. I don't know what to do." Her words were fragile, as if speaking them was a struggle. The weight of them hung in the air, heavy and aching. It was clear she didn't know how to help her mother, didn't know where to turn. And there I was, just another stranger in the crowd, but I couldn't ignore the desperate plea in her eyes.
I didn't think twice.
"Where is she?" I asked, standing up and offering my hand to her. She looked up at me with those big round eyes, hesitant at first, but then she took my hand. "She's by the alley," she whispered. Without another word, I led her through the market, my eyes scanning the area for any sign of danger. The marketplace was full of vendors hawking their wares, people rushing to and fro, but in that moment, all I could focus on was the little girl and the promise I had made to help her. We moved quickly through the crowd, her small hand clutched tightly in mine as I guided her toward the alley she had mentioned. The alley was dark and narrow, the walls on either side covered in peeling paint and grime. The air smelled of old garbage and dampness, a far cry from the colorful, lively atmosphere of the marketplace. And there, sitting against the wall, was a woman who looked much older than her years, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes were closed, and she seemed to be struggling to breathe, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. I knelt down beside her, my heart sinking. She was in pain, and whatever illness had taken hold of her was far beyond what I could treat. The little girl had been right to come to me, but I had no idea what I could do to help her mother. "Hey," I said softly, gently placing a hand on the woman's shoulder. "Can you hear me?" She stirred, her eyes fluttering open, and for a moment, I saw the same fear in her gaze that I had seen in the little girl's. But there was something else there too, something that reminded me of the girl's eyes, a silent plea for help, for salvation. The woman's lips trembled as she tried to speak, but all that came out was a raspy whisper. "Help my daughter." I nodded, my mind racing. I wasn't a doctor. I didn't have any medical knowledge. But I couldn't leave them like this. The little girl needed me. Her mother needed me. And for some reason, I wasn't going to walk away. "I'll get you help," I promised, my voice firm. "I'll take you to a healer. I'll find someone who can help." The woman nodded weakly, her eyes closing again as if the effort had been too much. I could hear the little girl's soft sobs behind me, and I turned to see her trembling, her small body racked with silent sobs. She had no one else, no one to turn to but me. I took a deep breath and stood up, turning back to the little girl. "Can you walk?" I asked gently. She wiped her eyes, nodding, and though she was scared, I could see a flicker of hope in her expression. She was trusting me, and that trust wasn't something I was going to take lightly. "I'll carry her," I said, my voice steady. "We're going to get her help." The journey to find a healer was long and tiring. We moved through the back streets, away from the busy market, until we finally found someone who claimed to know a healer who could help. The healer wasn't a doctor in the traditional sense. She was more of a mystic, someone who could use herbs and natural remedies to ease pain. It wasn't much, but it was all I had to offer. The healer worked her magic, concocting potions and applying salves to the woman's fevered skin. It didn't cure her, but it brought her some comfort. Over the course of the next few days, the woman's condition improved, and she was able to sit up, eat a little, and speak again. But it was the little girl who captured my attention. As her mother grew stronger, the girl became more and more attached to me. She stayed by my side constantly, even after her mother had recovered enough to speak with me. One day, as I sat by the fire, the little girl approached me, her eyes wide and serious. She stood in front of me, her small hands fidgeting nervously at her sides. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved my mom. You're a hero." I smiled, ruffling her hair gently.
"I didn't save her," I said softly. "I just helped."
"You did all the hard work." But she shook her head, her face serious.
"No, you didn't just help. You saved her.
You're like family to us now." I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but before I could respond, her mother entered the room. She looked stronger, her eyes no longer clouded with pain. But there was something different in the way she looked at me. It was the kind of look that made my heart race, the kind of look that made me uneasy. She sat down beside me, her voice soft but firm. "I can never repay you for what you've done," she began. "You've saved my daughter's life, and now, you've saved mine. But there is one thing I can offer you."
I turned to her, confused.
What could she offer me that would make a difference? Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a different kind of pleading in them, a pleading that wasn't about gratitude, but something deeper, something more personal. "I need you to marry me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need you to be my husband." The words hit me like a shockwave. My mind raced to make sense of what I had just heard.
Marry her? What was she saying?
The little girl stood behind her mother, her small hand gripping her mother's dress, looking up at me with wide eyes. "Please," the woman continued, her voice shaking now. "You've given us everything. I can't repay you in any other way. I want you to be a part of our family. I want you to stay with us. I need you." I stared at her in shock, my mind a blur. What had I just walked into? What had I gotten myself into? I sat there, the words ringing in my ears, my mind racing to process what the woman had just said.
Marry her? How could I?
This was all so overwhelming, so unexpected. I had helped them out of compassion, out of a sense of duty, but this was something entirely different. The little girl who had brought me into this stood silently behind her mother, her eyes wide with curiosity, but also with a hope that seemed almost too pure for the situation. The mother, on the other hand, looked at me with an intensity that both frightened and mesmerized me.
"Please," she repeated, her voice trembling.
"I don't know what else to offer you. I know this sounds strange, but you've saved us. You've given us a second chance at life, at hope. I can't let you walk away. I can't lose everything again." Her words were laced with a raw, honest desperation, a woman at the edge of her world, clutching at the last bit of safety and stability she could find. I wasn't sure how to respond. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and my heart thudded loudly in my chest as I tried to come up with something that wouldn't shatter the fragile calm that had settled over them.
"Why me?"
I finally asked, my voice sounding hollow even to myself.
"Why not someone else?
Why do you think marrying me will fix everything?" She let out a soft, almost defeated sigh, and it was in that moment that I realized the extent of the isolation she must have been feeling. She wasn't just asking for a marriage out of some fleeting impulse or emotional whim. This wasn't some romantic fantasy she was asking me to fulfill. No, it was something much deeper, born of need, of survival, of a desperate search for security after years of hardship. Her eyes met mine again, and there was something in them, a mix of sadness and hope, that stopped me from turning away.
"You don't understand," she said softly.
"I don't just need someone to help me raise my daughter. I need someone who will protect us, someone who will stand by us when the world is against us. You gave me back my hope. And I can't let it slip away now." I had heard so many stories in my life of people doing whatever it took to survive, of lives shaped by desperation, but I had never truly understood it until now. I had never fully grasped the depth of what it meant to have everything stripped away, family, security, love, and to be left with nothing but the barest spark of hope, something as fragile as a single thread in a storm. I could see that thread in her eyes, the way she clung to it, and I could feel my resolve wavering. What kind of man would I be to walk away from that? I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling on my shoulders. "I don't know what I can give you," I said quietly. I didn't come here to be anyone's husband. I came here to help. But I can't pretend to know what's right for you. For both of you." There was a long pause, during which the only sound in the room was the crackling of the fire. The woman sat motionless, waiting, as if her life depended on my answer. And maybe, in a way, it did. Maybe her entire world had led to this moment, this fragile request. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with an intensity that left no room for doubt.
"You saved us.
You gave us something no one else could. But if you leave now, I'll lose everything again. Please stay with us." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had never thought of my actions as anything more than a simple act of kindness. But for her, for them, it was more than that. It was a lifeline, a beacon in the dark. The little girl stepped forward slowly, her eyes locked onto mine. She hadn't said a word since her mother's plea, but now she looked up at me with that same trust, that same unspoken understanding that had drawn me to them in the first place. "I don't want to lose you," the little girl said, her voice small but earnest. "You're the only good thing we have left." Her words were like a dagger to my heart. How could I say no? How could I walk away from this family, from their hopes and dreams, when all they wanted was a chance to rebuild, to survive, to find some kind of happiness in this cruel, indifferent world? I stood up, pacing around the small room as I tried to collect my thoughts. My mind raced, replaying every conversation I'd ever had about love, about family, about duty. And still, nothing seemed to answer the question that echoed in my mind. Could I really take on this responsibility? Could I really marry this woman, become her husband, and take on the role of protector, provider, partner in a way that I hadn't ever considered before? "I never intended for this," I said, my voice low, almost to myself. "I didn't come here looking for a family. I didn't come here expecting to find this." The woman didn't respond immediately, but her eyes never left mine. They were filled with an understanding, an empathy that I didn't fully deserve. But that was part of what unsettled me. How could she look at me with such kindness, with such trust, when I had no idea what I was getting myself into? "I know," she said softly. "But sometimes, life doesn't go the way we plan. Sometimes, you find your purpose in the most unexpected places. I never thought I would find myself asking this of you. But I can't imagine what it would be like to lose you now." Her words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain, and it was in that moment that I realized something. It wasn't just her who was asking for this marriage, it was me too. I had been running from responsibility for so long, avoiding the deeper connections that came with love and commitment. But maybe this was what I needed. Maybe this was the purpose I had been searching for all along. I turned to face her, my decision settling in my chest like a weight being lifted. "I'll stay," I said, my voice steady now, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and something else. "I'll stay, but not because I think I owe you anything. Not because I think this is what I should do. But because I want to. I want to be part of this. I want to help rebuild what was lost. If you'll have me." A soft smile spread across the woman's face, the first real smile I had seen from her. It was full of relief, of gratitude, but also of something deeper, something like acceptance. The little girl ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist in a tight hug, and I could feel the warmth of her tiny body against mine, the trust that was now completely placed in me. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of innocence and hope. And in that moment, I realized something profound. I had always thought of myself as someone who helped others from a distance, offering kindness where I could but never truly committing. But now, I had a family. A mother and a daughter who had nothing left but each other, and they had asked me to be their protector, their partner. What started as an accidental act of kindness had become something much deeper, something much more meaningful than I could have ever anticipated. And though I wasn't sure what the future held, I knew one thing for certain. I had found a place where I was needed, a place where I could make a real difference in someone's life. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel so alone.